Hey grade 8s, hope you guys are doing well and I hope you guys are having a great week so far. Today we are covering probability trees. So the last time we just did some word problems with probability where it could be like, oh, someone is, I think there was one question where someone was going to pick someone to go into hot air balloon with them, and there was like 5 different names. 2 of them were girls' names and like 3 of them were boys' names. What was the probability of him picking a girl and what was the probability of them picking a boy? So I'm not going to do a too in-depth review about it because from the responses that I've gotten, from what I've seen, you guys have it. You guys have this down pat, no problem whatsoever. So I'll just quickly review the one question. So there was 5 people who were going to go up in the hot air balloon, and 2 of them were girls, 3 of them were boys. This isn't the exact question, I just changed it around a little bit. What is the probability of picking a girl is, well, 2 people out of 5 people entirely. So you have a 2 out of 5 chance. For the boys, there's 3 people, or 3 boys out of 5 entirely. And they had a 3 out of 5 chance of being picked. All right, so pretty simple. Today we are going into probability trees. So this is what I want to spend a little bit of time with because they do take a little bit of time to draw out. But it also really demonstrates an interesting thing about probability. So let's say I'm having a bet with a friend. I'm having a bet that I can get heads 3 times in a row. So 3 times I can get heads when flipping a coin. Now, on the face of it, that might seem, oh, I have a pretty good chance of winning because every time I toss a coin, I have a 1 in 2 chance of landing on heads. So first toss, I have a 50-50 chance. Second toss, I have a 50-50 chance. Third toss, I have a 50-50 chance. So by the end of it, well, if I toss it 3 times and all 3 times land on head, shouldn't it be a 1 out of 2 chance of me winning? Let's see. So here I am in my first toss. I start here. I have one of 2 options. I can either land on heads or I can land on tails. Second toss, if I land on heads, let's say the first toss I land on heads. Second toss, I have one of 2 options. I can either land on heads, I'm just going to use H for heads and T for tails, or I can land on tails. All right, so I want to land on heads again. So third toss, I can land on heads, or I could land on tails. There's something happening here. Let me finish up this chart to illustrate. So second chance here, if I land on tails, I can land on heads again, or I could land on tails. However, we also have to adjust this part. Let's say the first time I land on tails. Second toss, I could land on heads, or I could land on tails. Third toss, I could land on heads, or I could land on tails. If I land on tails in my second toss, I could land on heads, or I could land on tails. Do you see what's happening here? You are creating a pattern, as in every toss before is dependent. So first toss I ever do, I can either land on heads or I can land on tails. Let's say I land on tails. The second toss, I could land on heads or I could land on tails. Let's say I land on heads this time. Third toss, I could land on heads or I could land on tails. Let's say I land on tails. So this is, let's say this is my final outcome. I landed on tails first, then heads, and then tails. That's not the outcome I want though. I want to land all 3 times on heads. So that means the first chance I throw, I have to land on heads. Second toss, I have to land on heads again. Third toss, I have to land on heads again. What is the probability of me landing on heads all 3 times? Well, we have to look at the results of the third toss. The third toss shows us all probable outcomes of landing on heads or tails in all 3 tosses. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 different ways I could do the 3 throws. What is the probability of me landing on heads all 3 times? Heads, heads, heads. There's no other choice. I can only land on heads 1 out of 8 times. That's not the same as our 1 out of 2 that we had originally. That's because I have to land 3 times in a row. The minute I break that streak, it's gone, and I'm going into one of these other branches. So let's say first time I'm lucky, I land on heads. Second time, oh, I'm lucky again, I can land on tails, or I land on heads again. Third time, I could land on tails, and then, oh, that streak is lost. First time, I could land on tails. Oh, I'm already off to a bad start. Second time, I could land on heads. Okay. Third time, I could land on heads. But still only 2 tosses out of the 3 that I land on heads. So these are the different ways you can have that kind of an outcome. So as you can see, it's not as simple as, oh, I toss 3 times every time I have a 1 in 2 chance of landing on heads. It doesn't work that way. As you can see, it branches out. If I add in a 4th toss, it'll branch out even more. So let's try illustrating this again with another probability tree. So we have this one here. My first turn is going to be rolling a die. Rolling a die, I have one of 6 options because there's only 6 sides to a die. So I can land on a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. Next, I could flip a coin. So how this works is, you have a branch, you go out. I can land on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those are my possible outcomes. I can land on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Then I flip a coin. I could land on heads, or I could land on tails. If I roll 2, I could then land on heads, and then I could land on tails. So I'm going to finish this chart up, and I will get back to you guys in a second here. All right, so there's my completed chart. So let's say I want to talk about the probability of me rolling an even number. So let's say an even number. So that means I have to land on 2, 4, or 6, and then flipping heads. So I have way more possible outcomes this time. So that means I have to roll in either 2, 4, or a 6. That means I have a 3 in 6 chance so far. So if I get one of those 3 numbers, I'm on a good roll. Next is landing on heads. After an even number, I want to land on heads. So what are my possible outcomes? I have to land on 2, and then I have to land on a heads, 4, and then I have to land on a heads, 6, and I have to land on a heads. What are my odds of rolling an even number and then rolling a heads? We have to look at all possible outcomes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 possible outcomes. Next, we have to look at what outcomes are the ones that we want. So rolling an even number, we circled, and then rolling a heads, we circled. So this is one possible outcome. So that's 1. An even number, a heads, that's 2. An even number, a heads, and that's 3. There are 3 possible outcomes out of 12. Or if I reduce this fraction, I can divide both of these numbers by 3, which gives me a 1 in 4 chance. That changes our odds of getting the outcome we want dramatically, because rolling an even number, we had a 3 out of 6 chance, as in we had a 1 out of 2 chance. So out of 1 out of every 2 die throws, I should have been able to get an even number. And then I was just trying to land on heads. That's the same thing. I had 1 out of 2 possibilities of landing on heads. But now, because I wanted to land on even number and land on heads, the odds of that happening went down dramatically. Because in order for me to be on that right streak, on that right winning streak, I have to get the right outcome right away. And then I have to get another outcome that's favorable. It becomes even less likely to happen. Let's say I want to roll a 3 and then get tails. There's only one out of 6 chance of rolling a 3. And then to roll a tails, I have a 1 out of 12 chance because there's 12 different options to get that exact outcome. Right? So today what you're going to be working on is you're going to actually have a couple worksheets, a couple questions that have probability trees. Some you might need to just complete that are going to be very simple, like heads or tails, or like picking a blue or purple sock or something very simple. So you're either going to be completing those probability trees and then you're answering questions based off of them. So what are the odds of rolling 3, or whatever the odds of flipping a coin 3 times and getting a heads, a tails, and a tails? What are the odds of getting a tails, a tails, and a tails? So it's going to be questions based off of that. What I'm trying to show you is that once you have multiple probability options, as in you're flipping a coin 3 times, once you have multiple ways, your odds of getting that exact outcome go down dramatically. Instead of that 1 in 2 chance that you originally had with flipping a coin, now it goes down to 1 in 12 or 1 in 8. Right? So that's what you're going to be working on today. Let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. You guys are doing absolutely amazing work. I will see you guys on Friday.